the UK and much of Europe is experiencing the worst droughts, and now wildfires are starting to kick off in the UK, which we've already seen a lot in France and Spain. Have you seen some of the news that's been coming out? I was actually affected personally. My mum was in the south of France near Bordeaux when these fires were happening, and they had to be evacuated. It's crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. Is she okay? Did everything go all right with the evacuation?
Yeah, well, unfortunately now she's safe and sound back in the UK, because I think France in the south on fire is still better than most of the UK these days, you know. But yeah, and now the UK is starting to be on fire as well, so you know, maybe she'll be flying back. I'm not sure.
There seems to be a factor that keeps cropping up here, and that seems to be your mom. Goes to France, it's on fire. Goes to the UK. Are you sure she's not taken up a new hobby?
Yeah, maybe she's got to that stage in life where, you know, the Parkinson's has driven her to start committing arson everywhere she goes. We are joking, ladies and gentlemen. I love my mum to bits, right? So just so you all know. But yeah, hammer us in the comments for it. But yeah, it's crazy. There's I think nearly 250,000 people have been evacuated in the south of France. There's a lot of fires around Madrid. And now in the UK, there's huge fires in Suffolk, so much so that it's put a nuclear plant on high alert. The Sizewell B and Sizewell C facilities are on high alert because obviously fire's not good. There's a big grass fire in East London. There's been one up in the Cairngorms as well, which is bigger than they've ever seen up in that area. And it's one of those things where the way that the winds and the weather works, it creates these two different fire types that just combust and just rage, and there's not really much you can do about it. You're kind of down to the wind. And I know certainly in France, there's a few reasons for it. Obviously, the high temperatures, but there's a lot of discussion now that maybe it's a result of monoculture in that particular part of France, because one of the kings a long time ago, it used to be marshy and swampy. And what the king did is he planted like a lot of pine trees. So when you go there, because I spent a lot of time there as a kid with having family down there, there's like this grey sand in the pine forests everywhere. And I remember asking my auntie, like, what's this grey sand? It's weird. And she said it's because it used to be like mud and marsh. But the pine trees drink thousands of liters of water every day. It's like some obscene amount of water that an adult pine tree drinks in a day. So over time, it just sucked all the land totally dry. So it's basically like a sandy forest of pine.
Yeah, and pine has a lot of like oil as well, or it's got something in it that's really flammable. And so especially when everything gets dry, you just have lots of different factors all together that's just going to drive that fire. And
yeah,
I heard something as well. I don't know how true it is, but I was speaking to a Turkish guy the other day, and they have wildfires often in Turkey. And he was saying often what happens with pine trees is the actual pine cones, when they get hot, they'll be on fire and kind of go poof, and just like kind of fly off like little, almost like grenades. And so that sort of spreads the fire more.
It makes total sense, because that's how they spread their seeds, right? They get that. I think there's like a compression in them, and then eventually it goes and it fires out the seeds for the pine trees. And that's why when you see them on the floor next to the pine tree, they're sort of open rather than closed tight. Because when they're on the tree, they're like closed tight if they're at a certain maturity. So I think you're right. Once they're under fire conditions, they will do that, and they will spread. All of that sort of distance. But
yeah, I mean, I think either way, what we have to do is, the thing is, I know from like living in Spain in the past and having Spanish family, there's wildfires in Spain all the time. And I guess they sort of gotten used to it in some ways, but perhaps the governments just need to spend more money in terms of prevention, because there are things you can do. You can like pre-burn certain areas at certain times of year, so you have like a gap that if a fire starts here, then it has to end here and it can't jump across. You have to invest in just more airplanes, helicopters, fire services, because the weather is getting hotter in the summer everywhere. Not really by a huge amount, but gradually over time it is. And so you're going to have more droughts, more wildfires. And I don't know if we have a problem where governments are going, oh well, it's really expensive to invest in all this like fire prevention and like fire fighting equipment, so we'll just leave it. But then it's way more expensive after you've lost like 500 hectares of land or whatever to replace all the houses and everything else that was stood there. So I don't know if that's part of it, and it's just a lack of planning in some ways.
Yeah,
obviously we don't know how it started as well, because I know in Spain quite often like a fire starts and it didn't start on its own. It had help from people.
Careless barbecuers. There's a lot of careless barbecuers in Spain, I've heard.
Right, okay. It's what it's known
just
for.
barbecuing and going, go for a siesta, like whatever, just leave the coals, it's fine. No, but I think sometimes as well it's caused by lightning strikes, and they have more thunderstorms and stuff as well in that. And I think then the fire also causes more storms that create more lightning strikes as well. It like, follow the science. It's it does some stuff that makes some stuff happen that makes more fires. But yeah, you're right about the planned burning stuff, because that is what's in the news about the south of France as well. Is like they used to do this practice of planned fires, burning certain areas, and doing that every year, and they stopped doing it. And it's not the only example. So in the UK now we have a lot more floods in like the winter or the autumn or whenever it is. There's a lot more floods. We get a lot more heavy rain and floods and stuff like that. Well, that lines up with when the government stopped paying farmers to maintain their dikes and ditches around the fields.
Right, so they just left them and
to all get overgrown and blocked and whatever else. So there's like, and I would imagine there's probably less funding into like drainage and making sure things are like working in the drains and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so, there is more rain and water, but also they just don't do the maintenance they used to do to allow it to drain away.
Also, as everything keeps expanding and more areas get covered in concrete, then it doesn't have a natural way to absorb things. Like if you've got woodland and it rains, there's so many different ways that water is going to get absorbed or stopped by the soil or whatever else. Whereas when it's just concrete and tarmac, all it can do is wash away into the nearest drain. And so I think that's one reason you get flash floods as well. And yeah, part of it is there much else we can do about it? I don't know, really. Like I said, more than likely, it will continue to get hotter for a while until all of a sudden it'll start getting a lot colder in a couple of thousand years, because it's like the Milankovitch cycles that basically mean the Earth is going to be closer or further away from the sun on a huge timeline. But that does happen, and that's why we're in an interglacial period. And that's why it's going to continue to get hotter until it goes in the other direction. And in a couple of thousand years, we'll head towards an ice age again.
Well, I'll look forward to that.
So it's all good news on the weather front.
And also, that's total nonsense, Adam. It's clearly climate change. So I don't know what you're talking about. You need to follow the science.
I am following the science. That's why I said Milankovitch cycles.
But you're not following my science. And my science says climate change.
Which quite likely we are having some impact, but whether we were here or not, we'd have the same thing. And the Earth's been way hotter than this before. We've had snowball Earth on a number of occasions, like 3 that we know of, where the entire planet is covered in ice. So all we can do is just count ourselves very, very lucky that we live in this beautiful interglacial period, because it'd be a lot more difficult if it was glacial.
Yeah. And I think, in the future, maybe we can move to Mars, and I think it's quite a bit cooler there. So
you can mess that place up as well.
Get
some microplastics on the go.
Maybe we already did. Maybe that's why we're here. Who knows? Right. Who knows, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, we will keep you updated on the wildfire situation. If you are somewhere that is affected, make sure you stay safe, keep inside, close the windows, and we will see you on the next one. Thank you for watching, Adam. It's been a pleasure, my friend.
As always, see you next time.